Although you will be able thoroughly to understand about all those cosmic substances with which the three independent being bodies are coated and perfected in the common presences of your favorites, only when, as I've already promised, I shall relate to you in general about the chief cosmic fundamental laws of world creation and world existence. Nevertheless, for a fuller elucidation of our present theme, it is now necessary to explain a little about the changed form of the actualization in the common presences of your favorites of the second being food, automatically taken in by them. At the beginning, after the destruction of the organ kunda buffer, when they, like all the other three-brained beings of our great universe, also began to have a Fulazna-Tamnian existence, this second being food was normally transformed, and all the fundamental elements proper to it, those which arise from the transformation of their own planet and those which flow into their atmosphere from the transformation in other concentrations of their solar system, were assimilated by their common presence according to the definite data already present in them, and the superfluity of certain of its component elements not used by individual beings automatically passed, as in us, into the possession of the surrounding meritorious beings similar to them. But later, when, as I've already said, most of them began to exist in a way unbecoming to three-brained beings, great nature was constrained to change their Fulazna-Tamnian existence into an existence according to the principle of itoklanos. And when, gradually in the presences of most of them, those definite crystallizations foreseen by great nature, which crystallizations are the most important part of the composition of the second being food, and which, when assimilated by beings, are transformed into substances for the coating and for the further perfecting of their higher body Kesjan, ceased, owing to their abnormal being existence, to be assimilated either consciously or automatically for the purpose indicated. Then, in consequence of this, and also because the afflux of these substances transformed in other concentrations and getting into the atmospheres of the planets, continued all the time to flow into the atmosphere of your planet, the result was that on this ill-fated planet, among your unfortunate favorites, there arose still another definite disease, which has already become quite definite in its harmful action upon them. The point is that, not being used up for their predetermined purpose, the said definite cosmic crystallizations become, during certain displacements of their atmosphere, concentrated in certain of their atmospheric strata, and entering into them from time to time, dependently on various external surrounding conditions and also on the inner state of the common presences of your favorites, which, by the way, arises in them chiefly from the form of their mutual relationship, just into them as into apparatuses foreseen by nature in general for the transformation of cosmic substances of the most great general cosmic Trogo-Auto-Egocrat, and not meeting their substrata corresponding to the requirements of the lawful process of Jat-Kalam, they, that is, these cosmic crystallizations, during their subsequent free completed evolutions or involutions, for passing into other crystallizations proper to this planet, and before completing their transformations, produce upon planetary bodies, thanks already to other accidental factors, that action by which such a mentioned specific disease newly arisen there is characterized. Here it is opportune to notice that such a disease there, having such a specific cause, was named differently by your favorites at different times on different parts of the surface of their planet, And the contemporary beings, likewise, name it differently and also wiseacre differently regarding the explanation of its cause. From among the great number of names of this disease of theirs, the most widely spread there at the present time are grippe, influenza, Spanish influenza, dengue, and others. As regards the introduction into themselves of the second kind of being, food, which continues among beings even still up to now, then, since they lost the possibility of existing according to the Fulasnatamnian principle, certain of the ingredients of the substances of the second being food continue to serve only for assisting the transformation of the first being food, and for removing from the planetary body certain elements already used by them. Now, let us speak further about a particular psychic property of your favorites, and about my activities at that time among them in the capacity of a physician specialist, when I acted upon them by means of this particular psychic property of theirs. Though this hypnotism, or as they prefer to say, this branch of their science, arose and became official only recently, yet it had already had time to become for them another of their very serious factors, which brought about still greater confusion of their psyche, already muddled enough without this in the majority of them, and which still further deranged the functioning of their planetary body. After I had become a professional, namely a physician hypnotist, I grew a little interested also in this official science of theirs, so that when I later made my usual researches concerning various serious questions, as for instance the investigations concerning the results of the activities of the very saintly Ashiata Shiyamash, and chanced to come across something bearing upon questions of this branch of their science, I elucidated to my reason also this misunderstanding question there, as the automatic impelling causes which have become their usual for contemporary beings, for the revival also of such a branch of their contemporary science, were exceedingly peculiar, and even as they themselves would say, piquant facts. It will, in my opinion, be very interesting to tell you a little more in detail also about this said revival. Although contemporary learned beings there affirm that the beginning of this branch of their science was made by a certain English professor named Braid, and that it was developed by the French professor Charcot, yet in reality this was not so at all. From my detailed investigations of this said question, by the way, it became also clear that the former Braid had unmistakable signs of the properties of a Hasnamus, and the latter, Charcot, had the typical properties of a mama's darling. And terrestrial types of this kind, particularly the contemporary ones, can never discover anything quite new. And indeed it appeared that this matter proceeded there in the following way. A certain Italian abbot, Pedrini by name, was in his town what is called a confessor for a convent. To this abbot confessor there often came for confession a nun named Euphrosinia. From the stories told about her, it seems that she frequently fell into a certain particular state, and while in this state she displayed manifestations unusual for her environment. During the confession she complained to the abbot Pedrini that at times she was unmistakably under the influence of diabolical suggestions. Everything she herself said, and the stories circulated about her, interested the abbot Pedrini, and he became very desirous of convincing himself personally about them.